Buenos dias, Martin, and thank you for joining us today at Business Spotlight Series. Today, I am excited to introduce Martin Suttie, Managing Director at First Integrated Solutions and Chairman of First Tech Group. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Martin, the business, it was established in 1997. And
It's
First Integrated Solutions is a manufacturer and provider of highly quality safety critical services, including lifting equipment, inspection, and equipment sale and rental. So, how do you end up in this business?
well, that's a good question. So I'm I studied law at university, became a chartered accountant. I was at Deloitte for 6 years, and then worked for in audit and two in corporate finance, and then took a job at First Oil as it was then. Where my dad owned the business and he had a series of oil field service companies. So that was in May 2006. But we didn't get involved in First Integrated, although it started in 97 until about 2013. Um, and then really I came properly involved in it in 2016-ish and became the managing director in 2016. Uh, and yeah, it's been great. First Integrated, then First Tech Group. I became the chairman of that about 5 years ago. So we got 8 companies in the group, and we've seen pretty significant growth over that period. So, yeah, brief overview of me, I suppose.
Brilliant. And is this when you were, going back at school? What was it you wanted to be when at school days? When you were at the school daydreaming, what do you want to do when I grow up? What, was running a business in your mind or far off it?
So my dad was a serial entrepreneur, so I saw the sort of good, the bad, and the ugly of running your own business. And yeah, I probably wasn't desperate to do it by any means. It takes quite a toll on yourself and your family life at times. And yeah, but I hadn't ruled it out either. I kind of felt, um, yeah, maybe I would do it, but maybe I wouldn't. And then as my career progressed, as I say, studied law, so that's not a natural CEO type studying thing. And then I became a chartered accountant again. I was at Deloitte, so I was quite happy there. And then at First Oil, where I worked for 10 years, I was very happy reporting into Graham Forbes, uh, the managing director at the time, and then Steve Bowyer became the managing director, and I was very happy there as well. So, yeah, it wasn't I have to be running my own business, but one of the joys of running your own business was a bit of a surprise to me. I hadn't really appreciated until I became the managing director how much I'd enjoy um, mentoring people, I suppose. I'm not sure mentoring's the right word, but seeing people progress and helping them on their development journey. Um, I hadn't really done a lot of that at Deloitte, and I hadn't done a lot of that at First Oil either. So I've really enjoyed that part. And recently, we just promoted Nicola Talker to be the group HR director, and she'd been with us 10 years. And she originally started with a very small team of 8 people in FMS, and probably wasn't doing that much HR at that point. And then now we've got a group of 400 people, and she's the head of HR, HR director for the group, which is, an amazing progression, and I've been delighted to be a very small part of that.
Brilliant. No, that's quite impressive. So you talked about, things that you enjoyed. Is there so what are the things besides mentoring people and growing them? What are the aspects of the business do you love doing?
Well, I think it's a great question actually, because I often say to people, there's everybody has bits of their job they don't like doing, and I think especially young people coming into the industry or any industry, they expect that there's the job should just be some utopia, and you kind of have to learn that for yourself. I think that there's always going to be bits of the job that you don't enjoy doing. Like I always use the analogy of like a professional sports person. They probably love the performing, but do they love the practice? Do they love the exercising or whatever. I'm not sure.
Yes.
So the bits that I really enjoy doing is working with people. That would be my big thing. I've always enjoyed meetings and seeing uh, getting that interaction with people, and then the bits that you don't enjoy are and having success is, you know, if we're doing well, if we're winning new customers, if we're investing in our future, and I can see we're progressing, I get a lot of buzz out of that, and I think. Especially when you can recognize it before you've had this sort of tangible success, I think there's a satisfaction of knowing that a good thing's going to happen because you're doing the right
Yes.
things in the business, and I've enjoyed that over the years.
Um, how many people did the business have when you joined back in 2016-ish?
So in 2016, we had about 80, 90 people, and we've still got about 80 or 90 people in First Integrated. But across the group, we only had about 140 people, 130 people at that time, and now we're 400. And I think, okay, we've done two pretty significant acquisitions, so we've added about 100 people through that, but we've done a lot of organic growing to get from sort of 130 to 400 people. So, yeah, seen some pretty extreme growth in the last 3 years, really.
Yes.
Most of that has actually been in the last 3 years. But as I was saying there, seeing the progression that we were making in the sort of 2018, 2019, 2020, I could see that good times were coming. We were winning contracts. We were um, improving our team. We were increasing our head count to some extent, but it was just it seemed inevitable that the good times would come, and it's tough to be patient as well. Maybe it's easy in hindsight to say that uh, it's enjoyable to see the progression even when you haven't got the results, but
Yes.
you have to be patient as well because
Yeah,
it can take well, it always takes longer than you expect.
definitely. And the thing of enjoying the journey. Okay, once you get to the ultimate goal, is enjoying the journey to get there. You
Yeah,
know,
I think it's always a journey, though. I think it's a bit like when you're, I don't know, 15 and you look at a 25-year-old and you sort of say, "Oh, I'll know everything when I'm 25." And then you get 25 and hopefully by then you've realized you're never going to know anything, but often it takes longer. Probably took longer for me. And I think that's the that's the bit about life that is enjoyable, I think, is that it is a journey. It's never a destination.
correct. Yeah,
And yeah, you got to
yeah,
embrace that. And I think as you get older, you gradually do embrace that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, so I'm interested to learn to see, growing the business from 100 plus to 400 in such a short uh, period of time. How do you handle the values of the business, the core values, the culture? Because as you throw people in, they all come with their baggage, with their values. How do you deal with that in the business?
So one of I don't know if I'd call it my philosophy, but I
Go
think
for it.
I don't yeah, it's maybe too grand a title, but I think one of the things I've always enjoyed in working here and with my dad was we always took a long-term view. We weren't like a private equity house where we're trying to flip the business in 3 to 5 years, or um, we weren't trying to rush to get a certain set of results. So it wouldn't matter to us whether the sale happened on the 30th of April or the 1st of May. And I think sometimes in business, we get caught up in the noise of business and trying to do things to window dress a business or whatever. But if you have a long-term view and make the best long-term decisions for the business, it's actually very liberating for the people in the business. I think most of the time, the senior management teams in the business and people right across the business can they do understand the business a lot of the time, and it's just we overcomplicate business so often, I think, and by trying to add jargon and add complexity when actually business is fundamentally pretty simple. You're trying to make the right decisions. You're investing in your people. You're investing in your infrastructure. You're investing in your customer experience, and all that plays into it. And if you do those things, I think you have a certain clarity. And I think the other thing we probably do quite well is we so we don't change the culture of the business particularly we're trying to buy. So about 100 of those 400 or 100 of the 270 people we've grown have been acquisition, and part of that is don't go in like a bull in a china shop and try and change everything overnight. It's like subtle changes, or work with the management team so that they are on the journey with you. And I think ultimately it's quite an easy journey to get people to be on board with, because it's, as I say, it's liberating, it's freedom, there's a satisfaction in being able to plan for the long term, and actually seeing that the chairman or the shareholder is patient and willing to let you express your opinions and make the right decisions for you and the company.
How many business have you acquired in the journey so far?
Three. So we acquired a very small one, North Sea Compactors, and then, well, I suppose almost all of them have been acquired because we only started up one of the eight, but three in my time as chairman. We've bought North Sea Compactors three 2.5 years ago maybe, and we bought Tusk Lifting in July, which has been a massive success. We already, so we have bought that as a 33-person business. It's now over 50 people. And then Andrew Survey we only bought in February, but we're really excited about that business as well. We're going to invest quite a lot in that business, and in terms of equipment and in headcount, we're already recruiting significantly for that business.
And when you say that when you acquire a business, you respect the culture, the incumbent culture, is it is there much interaction between the acquired business and yourselves, or you just buy them, let them carry on as if nothing had happened? And because
Yeah,
I guess so that's one question. The second question is, if there is interaction, I guess you may end up we have two different sets of culture, could be very different, very similar, or something in between. So is it that you buy companies where there is a similar culture? You are close enough to let them get on with it, or tell us about that.
yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends whether the senior management team's staying with the business or not. So if the senior management team's staying with the business, it's unrealistic to get them to change the way they do business. I think it'd be pretty naive to think that me as chairman could suddenly reset the culture. I think you're pushing water upstream then. I don't think that's realistic. You can change things. And so I see it more as take some of the problems away from them, take some of their burdens of, reporting into the shareholder. Maybe it was tricky, or maybe they were capex constrained with the previous owner, or whatever it might be, and you try and work with them to make their lives easier. And then they sort of adapt to the culture maybe of we're in this for the long term. We can see that it's not just about this year's profits, it's about the profits in 5 years' time that we're doing for business. And like, who doesn't want to work in a business like that? I think ultimately that is the culture people probably want and probably don't get very often, because the shareholders are often trying to go at a different pace or a different path than the management team.
Okay. Um, how much of your time do you spend with the businesses you acquire?
So um, it depends. So, for example, Andrew's survey was bought by First Marine Solutions, so it already had First Marine Solutions has its own senior management team, and then I sit above that as chairman. So, um, First Marine Solutions will spend quite a lot of time with Andrew's survey, probably. But um, again, there's a managing director in place and a senior management team who've done a great job. Staff retention has been unbelievable in that business, and one of the things that attracted us to that business. So change the culture massively. Does staff retention drop off? Yeah, probably. So
Yeah.
you've got to work with the culture that's there and support that and embrace that. Um, Tusk lifting's a bit of an easier question for me to answer because I'm the managing director of First Integrated, and First Integrated bought that business. So very similar business. One of the things I did when I bought that business was very conscious that we got a young, ambitious managing director there, and I didn't want to impose myself too much on Kevin. He's a great guy and really knows how to run that business. So I was very conscious of saying, well, we'll just set up periodic meetings or whatever, and it's actually worked out miles better than that. Kevin and I speak almost every day on the phone, uh, which is great. And we've been up and down the road quite a lot as well. So it's been absolutely tremendous that. And yeah, I genuinely believe it's partly because um, you give people the freedom to express their opinion and make decisions, and then they embrace the sort of opportunity to discuss those decisions with you rather than feeling like he needs to get my approval. He kind of wants to tell me what's going on as a business, and I love that. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I remember you saying last time we spoke that part of your success, as I understood it, was when you acquire businesses, you let them get on with it. So there
Mhm.
is no interference. Mhm. And then parallel to that, you were talking about, simplicity, simplifying things rather than
Yes.
overcomplicating them. So yeah, I guess that's part of your philosophy, if you like.
Yes. No, exactly that. And that was probably put better than I was trying to say it there. But that is, I think, as long as you have good people in those positions, you should trust them to make the decisions. Ultimately, they are closer to the coal face or whatever, so they know what's going on in the business better than you. And so I try and provide guidance from my experience of what I've seen, and but yeah, and I sort of sense check that they're making the right decisions, and generally that's, are they making the right decisions for the long term? Are they being ambitious enough, or are they investing for the future enough? But yeah, certainly try not to make it all about me or my decisions. That's definitely not
Yeah.
a good way to have people have a lot of job satisfaction. I remember a time when I was at First Oil, we went to see an operator, and we proposed an idea to them about jointly developing a lot of different discoveries over existing infrastructure, and it would have been a good success for us and for them. And they took the idea and said, "Yeah, that's exactly what we should be doing." And I was like, "Well, okay, great. Like, what's the next steps? Like, this is brilliant." And they said, "Well, that we're not going to do it. We're not going to even take it to our senior management." And I kind of had lost the chain of the conversation. So I was like, "Well, how did that happen? What? I don't understand. Why are you not doing that?" And they said, "Well, it'll be denied. It'll be turned down. So we're not even going to take it to them." And I sort of said to my boss, "Why do they work here?" And my boss quite rightly kicked me on the table and said, indicating that that was a rude thing to say, and it was. But it was kind of a reflex. I didn't understand why you would want to work somewhere where your opinion is so not valued that you don't even express it. I mean, obviously, people can express opinions, and their line managers or the bosses might not agree with it, and then therefore that decision's not made. But
Yeah.
to be in a position where you're uh, so disillusioned that you don't even think your opinion's valued. And does that work for the senior management either? I don't think so. Like, do they want people that don't want to express their opinions either? Like, they can't honestly believe they have a monopoly on good ideas. So
Yeah.
I just don't see how that works. And that's certainly the culture I'm aiming for across the First Tech Group, is that everybody has a voice, everybody has an opinion, and it's better for job satisfaction. And also, I think we all know that a lot of really good ideas come from maybe quite silly ideas initially, but if you actually start thinking about the task or whatever, you can actually turn that silly idea into a really good idea. So,
Yes. Yeah, and I believe that everybody has a unique ability, And if you don't allow people to express their opinion, you are blocking their unique ability, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So brilliant. People, what are the main attributes you look for when recruiting people? What is you're looking for? What attributes or values?
Yeah. I mean, I think enthusiasm would be the first and foremost. I think if you're not enthusiastic on day one, it's unlikely you're going to get more enthusiastic. So I think you won't. I think sometimes when we interview people, they look like they don't want to make a mistake so that they don't get the job. And I would say they should really flip the attitude on the head and say, I need to show that I really want this job. And if you make a mistake from that position, it's it's a better position to be in. You
Yes.
know, if you don't express yourself, it doesn't look like you're enthusiastic for the job, and therefore probably you're not going to get the job. So by trying to do nothing wrong, you did nothing right almost. Um, and I think so enthusiasm, obviously trustworthy, knowledgeable, a good communicator, I think is important. And then uh, yeah, one of the things we try and work on here is making sure there's sort of mutual respect and empathy across the businesses and the business and the departments within the business. And I think um, you're looking for that. And but yeah, I mean, it depends on the job as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think enthusiasm is a big thing. I think if you um, I remember when I became managing director here, we had a great team of people and they were very enthusiastic, but maybe just too enthusiastic, too keen to do well. And I had to sort of almost calm the business down. We had quite emotional people in the business, and it was just trying to show that, as I say, we're in the business for the long term, calm things down. It wasn't a we must make money this week type problem. It was like we have to make the right decision so this
Yeah.
business is still going in 20 years' time, not next week. And I think that calming culture helped a lot. And I think, but you can work with enthusiasm. It's difficult to get somebody to be enthusiastic from a standing start with it. You don't feel they're interested.
Yeah. I think it was Jim Collins in the book Good to Great talks about having the right people in the right seats,
Okay.
getting the right people on the bus. Then
Yeah.
you can get to any destination, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, very simple idea, very powerful with great impact. Um, you talked about the thing of people making mistakes. So what I remember during COVID, I was interviewing somebody online via Zoom, but prior to that, they had to answer 3 questions, record themselves, and then send them to us. And then we would select which one we wanted to interview. And there was a lady who recorded herself, answered the 3 questions, and then she made a mistake during the recording. She laughed at it and carried on. She didn't record, and I found that so genuine. And she made it to the end, really, and we gave her the job.
It feels like you've been watching my LinkedIn videos. I don't know if you have you? But the my videos on LinkedIn are far from perfect, and I've had some
I've seen a
amazing.
few. Yeah,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
seen. I've got really positive feedback because
Yes,
no
people like
point in.
authenticity. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It almost feels like a backhanded compliment because it's like, yeah, it's not perfect, but that's what it is. And
yeah,
I think it's I think there's a lot of people sort of almost telling people how to behave or what they should be feeling, and I don't believe in that. I believe in being myself, and people can take from that what they want, but I'm not in a position to tell people how to live their lives or anything like that. And
yeah,
I, I, I'm not perfect. I could spend ages doing these videos to make them better, but for what
yeah. For what
purpose?
purpose? Yeah,
I want people to see me, and I think that's
yeah,
it's for the benefit of the people that work here, and then also for potential customers to feel like they know me a little bit. and they know the company a little bit, and that's why I'm doing it. So there's no point in trying to pretend that we're perfect in every way.
Yeah.
We're not, and humans
Yeah.
are not. So
I love on that line. I love the concept of the 20-80, doing the 20% that will get you 80% there.
mhm.
You apply that to a video, it's fantastic, and anything else you do. So,
Yeah. Well, we published the bloopers we made with Emma and I at the whiteboard. We're talking about we're called first and we're built to last, and uh, the bloopers were absolutely brilliant. I was crying with laughter, and it's important in life to laugh at yourself. I think it's easy to take yourself too seriously, and
yeah,
I think bad things happen when you do. So, recognize your failings and embrace them. We're not perfect.
yeah. So on that line, tell us about one of the biggest challenges that you had to face in your career.
It's first tech group when Stephen Brown and myself started making the decisions in the group. We basically had four businesses that were all underperforming, and I think for a long period there, we were making the right decisions, and we could see the direction of travel was coming, and we were making progress, but the results were very poor still, especially given how much money had been invested in the group. So I think patience is underappreciated, and as I say, it's kind of linked to the built to last. It's like you just have to um, recognize that the more you put into things, the more you get out, but it's not always fair. It's not a linear relationship, so you have to keep going, keep persevering, and I think also taking people on the journey with you, making sure that people understand that we're making the right long-term decisions and that the results will come. But you also need a bit of urgency in the business as well. So um, I often use the analogy of a swan, going across the lake. Looks like it's not trying that hard, but underneath it's paddling pretty fast. And I think um, as a senior management team, and first integrated, but across all the senior management teams, I think that's a good example to kind of set, try and look calm even if things are difficult, and project an image of assuredness and no panic. And I think ultimately, when does a good decision get made when you're feeling rushed or panicked? It's very rarely. So yeah,
Yeah. So you talked about a couple of things. One is so patience to get the results. Now, what gives results or what precedes results is activity. So that's the swarm, under the
yeah,
water. That's activity, okay? Making the phone calls, having the meetings, whatever else you are doing. How do you combine that with, because sometimes you may have the wrong strategy or doing the wrong activity, and it's not a matter of patience when you are doing the wrong thing. So how do you combine that in your business, where you realize, okay, we are barking at the wrong tree here.
yeah. Well,
Mm.
that's not easy to do. I agree with that. It's it's definitely yeah, probably one of the flaws of the system of trying to look at everything in the long term. But sometimes you just have to recognize that this is this is not going to work. And we've had, of course, we've had times like that. We've tried to set up overseas locations for First Integrated, and that's not worked well. Um, and yeah, even we set up a depot in London and that didn't work well either. So that was one of the attractions of buying the Tusk lifting business. They'd successfully set up four depots. So we turned First Integrated into a five depot business effectively, if you include Tusk. So um, they just had, I think it's quite difficult to set up a small depot when you've got a 90-person depot here. Um, the culture and the priorities are different, and I think it's yeah, we didn't get the balance right of that. And then whereas Tusk have successfully done that a few times, and Kevin in his previous companies as well has managed to do that. So one of the attractions for that business was definitely the ability to set up new depots and following their capabilities because we're certainly not experts on that. And we will set up more depots around the UK, certainly. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. So yeah, so regarding in terms of the aspect of failure or not getting it right, we've all heard many times this concept of fail fast.
Yes.
And the first time you listen to that, fail fast, tell me more about this. So um, I think Elon Musk is, I read his biography. It's a great read, actually. And he's great at failing fast. So his methodology is, he challenges all the regulations, cost of materials, blah, blah, blah. And he scraps things to the bare bone. And he goes below that. Oh, we went too far. Okay. But he does it fast. He doesn't take ages to, and I found it quite refreshing because sometimes when growing a business and when you've been years doing it, you add a lot of fat
Yep.
on the system, and then you end up with an inflated structure. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Running your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a very dynamic individual, much more dynamic than I would be. So I suppose it fits his character. I think, uh, and he's a big risk taker, and probably I'm not taking quite as big risks, as big swings as him. So yeah, there's probably a difference there. I think it's right though. Obviously, if you're ultimately going to shut down a business, um, then obviously it's better if you shut it down earlier. But maybe something that's sort of similar in our business is one of the risks we do take is we spend a lot of capex on a rental fleet. And so in First Integrated, we will um, buy items every single day. We'll buy and extend our rental fleet. And a lot of our competitors or the traditional view in the rental market will be don't, and even within internal sales team will be, don't buy anything in case it gathers dust in the corner of a shelf, and then somebody will come back and ask you why you bought it years later, and you'll get negative feedback or whatever on that. And I view it differently. I think obviously that's not ideal, but a lot of the time, and much more common occurrence is you'll cross hire something. So you'll hire it from a competitor and then you'll hire it out to your customer. And you might do that 3 or 4 times, maybe more. And then you'll go, we're cross hiring these things quite regularly. We should probably
Correct.
buy one. And you go, yeah, but like basically you've set the money on fire that you've paid to cross hire them for your competitors the first few times. So be bold. If you think you can hire it out again, don't wait for you a track record of cross hiring it. Oh yeah, we've been quite successful. This now we should buy one. Well, no, buy one now. Save that money. And if you do that 10 times and you get it right 8 or 9, and then twice you get item and gathering dust in the corner of the shelf, well, you've made more money than not. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's times where you should be taking more risks, and there's times where you have to be more conservative.
Yeah.
I, I think the other example I probably have is when we were in the E&P first oil, we drilled I think we drilled 125 wells in our history there. And yeah, there's nothing like failing fast as drilling an exploration well, because if there's nothing down there, you failed fast.
Yeah.
Um, but
And you
yeah,
move on. Yeah.
yeah. And but even then, sometimes you have you find a discovery and then you appraise it and then you appraise it again and you drill multiple wells and then you work up a development strategy and you realize there's not enough oil or gas down there and you can't develop it anyway. So
Yes.
failing fast, it would have been cheaper to not discover any oil and gas in the first place. So
Correct. Yeah. And I guess the thing of failing fast is the most important thing is the learnings from that experience. That's how you build a business, really. Oh, when we
absolutely.
started, you hear all sorts of stories and then build on learnings.
Yeah,
They are measured failure. Well, for me, failure is when you stop trying, right?
yeah,
Well, when you say, okay, let's stop digging for oil, that's failure. You've given
absolutely,
up.
absolutely. I
Um,
mean, one of the other things that sort of touches on. I mean, First Subsea went from a 5 million turnover business to a 20 million turnover business in 1 year. So they grew really fast. And of course, you make mistakes during that process. But would you rather go 5 to 7 to 9? No, you wouldn't. You embrace that. You make some mistakes. You learn quickly, and they have done, and they've done a great job of that. And I think, um, yeah, you have to adapt to the circumstances. It's easy, I think, to write a strategy document and try and stay rigidly to that document, but then you're closing yourself out from opportunities. And
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that take the opportunities as they come along. Were we desperately looking for tusk lifting? No, we
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah.
The opportunity came across my desk. We took the opportunity, and it's been a great success. It should have been in our strategy. Maybe we should have been looking, but you could spend a long time looking to find a business is perfect for us as tusk lifting,
Yeah.
and ultimately that's then closing you off from other ideas. So
Yeah.
being open to opportunities is important, and I think that's what you're
Yeah.
sort of alluding to. And if you stop trying and become too rigid, is a
Yeah.
mechanism of stop trying. We're
Yeah.
just going to stick to exactly this strategy.
Yeah.
It's a way of not trying, I think.
Yeah. I love the word you use of adapt, to adapt, because which are the species that survived, the ones that adapt, not the strongest. All
Yeah,
the dinosaurs are gone, you know.
yeah, yeah.
It's um yeah, no, very great insight. So what are the aspirations of the business, going 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Yeah, so I don't I don't think you're going to love my answer to this, but I don't think it's that important to set a target of, right, we must get to 100 million turnover or we must achieve this. I think again, you're setting yourself up for a too rigid strategy. So if your strategy is to get to 100 million turnover, for example, then you do poor business decisions. You can buy a company that gives you turnover but not profit, or you pay too much because you definitely want to fulfill what you've told the market, or you told your peers, or even told your staff. That's not the way to run a business. It's about value. It's not about um, setting the objectives as narrowly as that. So what we do in our businesses is we're thinking much more about what should we be doing next to grow the business. So, for example, we've got a team of people working in Glasgow on research and development products for floating offshore wind mooring solutions. And we're a consultancy there as well for the big operators. We're working with most of the big operators on floating wind. And then we separately, we're developing products for the floating wind market. So that is not something you would say this is an obvious thing to make money next year, in 2 years, 3 years. That is a long-term play, and we're really enjoying the possibility of a bright future with that. And that's because we're in a robust financial position and we're able to take a long-term view. Other businesses who are under more pressure to deliver results this year or next year can't take that view, and I think that differentiates us in quite a big way. And I hope it's going to pay off handsomely, and maybe I'll look back on this interview and wish I'd failed fast, but I don't think that is going to happen. We're taking a position, and we've grown our market position there substantially, and we're working with the operators. So and we're developing an anchor solution as well that might be very useful for the floating offshore wind market. I was down playing in the sand pit that we have for as a test tank across the road just this week, and some of the results I saw were really, really exciting. So yeah, we have a bright future in that. But what's the point in setting a timeline if you don't have to? Like, the market will determine the timeline. I could
Yeah.
say I want this to be profitable in 3 years' time. Well, that, it, what do I know about when the projects are going to happen? That's not that's not a realistic way to do it, and you set yourself up for failure there. I think um, you have to create the right sort of framework to allow you the best chance of success.
What is your geographical reach as a business?
Um, so we're all in the UK. All 400 people are in the UK at the moment. So most of those people are in Aberdeen. Probably about um, 250-ish in Aberdeen, I would say, of the 400. Lancaster has 100. Tusk Lifting has 50-ish. And then there's a few in Glasgow, so yeah, maybe just less than 250
And your
in Aberdeen.
client based?
Clients are based all over the world. So we have um, First Subsea is looking after cable protection systems mainly for fixed wind, but they also do subsea mooring connectors, and they've been involved in floating wind projects already as well with their platform mooring connectors. And those projects, the fixed wind cable protection system market is truly worldwide. So they've provided into Asia, into America, into Europe and such like. And then at the moment, we're just finishing with FMS. We're just finishing up a project in India. It's been a big project of hooking up an FPSO. We're speaking to. We've got a team of people over in Houston at OTC at the moment, and we're working on trying to develop relationships over there for First of Sea and for FMS, and we'll be doing work in Guyana hopefully in the future. And we've got people working in Brazil at the moment. So yeah, really
Very
what
exciting plans, yeah.
yeah, Andrew Survey, I mean they look after they send people onto vessels and those vessels can go anywhere in the world. So um the people will typically stay on the vessel, but the vessel can be going from the North Sea to Asia or Africa or wherever. And so yeah, it's yeah, it's truly a worldwide business based in the UK, which is yeah, pretty exciting place to be and pretty proud of that to be honest.
Fantastic. So just wrapping up a little bit, what would be the advice you would give to your 18-year-old self, Martin?
So the advice I'd give myself, well, I think one of the things about life is and business is you get out of it what you put in it. So like the harder you try, the more likely you're going to have success. But life's not fair and business isn't fair. Sometimes you can do everything perfectly well and the circumstances go against you. So, yeah, that's tough when that happens. It definitely is. But I think if you knew the future, life would be terribly boring. So I wouldn't want to tell myself that, or of course I would like to tell myself that, well, you should buy Bitcoin or you should invest in Tesla shares or whatever it might be and you make lots of money. But if you strip it back, I think life is much more interesting a,
Definitely.
as a spectator going to a sporting event, not knowing the result. And I think that would be a good analogy for life.
Yeah.
It's much better to to experience life not knowing what's going to happen next. So
Yeah. Yeah. Money is an outcome. That's all it
yes,
is, an outcome, So
yeah. I mean, and one of the things, I was thinking about what's success, and I think so. It's one of our values behind me here for First Integrated, and we've been talking about that to all our staff, what it should mean, and I think success for the for us and for me is, having people who are happy and motivated to be here. And I think almost all the other aspects of success are pretty much guaranteed if we have 90 people at First Integrated pulling in the same direction who are happy and motivated to be here, then we're going to have a successful business. And I think, yeah, as we said earlier, it's a bit of a journey, but yeah, that's the aim is to get everybody happy and motivated, pulling in the same direction. And I think we
yeah.
largely do that. We've got a great team here.
Yeah. I love the mantra of Jim Rohn, who said, I don't wish life was easier, wish you were better. And you can translate that into don't wish
Uh,
business was easier, wish you were better at business. Which
yeah,
goes along what you just said a minute ago. Yeah, it's I love that
yeah.
mantra.
No, it is. Yeah. Yeah, I've not heard that before. It's good.
Brilliant. And book, is there a particular book you've read that you would recommend to people watching this recording?
Um, I'm not sure it's strictly business related, but I read a really interesting book that I spoke to a lot of people about. It was quite a long time ago now, but it's called Bounce by Matthew Syed. Have you read that one?
No.
It's about the theory of if you do 10,000 hours at anything, you
Yes,
become an
yes,
expert on it. And
yes.
so he didn't write the theory, he didn't come up with the theory, but he explored it, and there's so many fascinating elements to it. But I was yeah, so whenever meet a sports person, I normally ask them about this theory, and in general, I think actually every single time they've said they don't believe the theory. It's a lot of it's down to their own talent, which I find kind of disappointing. I think like that's too humble of them. They worked really hard to get to be a professional sports person. So then to sort of strip it back and say, well, I was also lucky, I think is it's not quite right. And it's there's obviously flaws in the theory, but he addresses them really well in the book. And I would encourage people to read it because, as I say, you get out of things what you put in. And I think like so. Um, yeah, some of the sports people, like I always thought they were a bit too humble. I thought, in the sense, don't blame it on your talent that you were successful. Say you
Yeah,
worked
yeah, yeah,
hard.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It takes more than talent to be successful.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many fascinating elements about it, but one of the stories was a table tennis player called Desmond Douglas, and they did this. So this is in the 80s, I think, and they did reaction times, and he was famous apparently for having the fastest reactions amongst the British players, and they so they did this test and he came up slowest, so they just stopped doing the test. They said it's obviously rubbish. This is a stupid test. But it transpired that he learned to play table tennis in a really small shed, and he couldn't step back from the table. So he got brilliant at reacting quickly by sort of looking at the where the guy was likely to hit it, rather in preparing for that, rather than waiting for it to be hit. So it was just one of there's so many good examples in the book,
Yeah.
and yeah, I encourage people to read it.
Brilliant. Well, what a good note to end the podcast today. And Martin, I want to thank you for it's been a real pleasure having you on board with us
No,
today
thank you
and
very
for
much. I enjoyed
sharing your journey with us and being so authentic. Thank you so much.
it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.